episode is brought to you by Bones Coffee Company. You can forget about boring coffee when you drink Bones Coffee. Not only do they offer a variety of flavors such as strawberry cheesecake and maple bacon, they are a family-owned company that puts great detail not only in their coffee, but in the artwork that comes on each individual bag. Bones Coffee has a coffee club that will deliver your favorite coffee to your door every month. If that wasn't enough, they also have some amazing swag to offer. Check out Bones Coffee Company today. I'll have my affiliate links in the show notes for you. Hi guys, welcome to another episode. Today we are talking about the forgotten case of Sharon Beatrice Jones. She was a 21-year-old college student attending Elizabeth City State University, and she was killed on March 5th, 1984. And unfortunately, all these years later, there is very little information about this poor woman. And so today we're going to try to do something about that. We're going to try to kick up some publicity for this young woman. On the line, I have two of my favorite co-hosts. I have Cricket. How are you, Cricket?
Good. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Cricket. We've also got Tammy, one of my favorite researchers. How are you, Tammy?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing okay. This case I found disturbing because there's literally no information. Did you guys find any information? I mean, it seems like all the information that's available online is channeled through one source. A guy named Greg has picked up the torch on this case, and it seems like everything is funneled through him. And other than that, there's not a lot of information. I found it quite disturbing. So we're going to be, of course, we're still drinking Bones coffee. Make sure and check out our affiliate link if you want some good coffee. Check it out. That helps us make more videos when you purchase coffee using our links. So let's jump into Sharon's case. If you hear papers rattling, it's because I've taken some notes. Sharon Beatrice Jones, she was attending Elizabeth City State University. She had just come back a little early from spring break, so the dorm was basically empty. There was only a few people on campus. She had come back early because she had to get a few things prepared before Monday, and so she was actually there when there was very few other people on campus. They found her body on March 5th, 1984, around 8:30 in the morning. One of the dorm supervisors noticed that her glass in her window was broken, so they went to check. They found her nude body. She was face down beside the bed. She had a white cloth belt that had been tied around her neck and tied to the bedpost. She had been beaten. It looked like pretty severely. It looked like she put up quite a bit of fight. They found a bloody dumbbell that they think she may have actually returned the fight and beat her attacker with. Unfortunately, she lost this battle, and they found her on the early morning of March 5th, 1984. Unfortunately, the case seems to go off the rails from the very beginning. There's not a lot of information available on this case, but from the few, I found like 3 or 4 newspaper articles on this one Facebook page that was put together by a man named Greg. I don't know if he wants his last name put out or not, but so we'll just call him Greg. He has kind of picked up the torch on this case, and everything he has found, he has put onto one Facebook page, and we'll put the links in the comments in the video description so you have that. But basically, there was only very few newspaper articles that even mentioned this case at the beginning, and they immediately thought that this was some kind of schism between 2 women at the university. And they assumed that since this person made entrance into her apartment without any forced entry, that this was someone she knew. So from immediately, they start looking for a woman that she knew. And that's where the case went. That was the direction that this freight train started going. And unfortunately, we're going to find out that it was going in the opposite direction of which it needed to go. We do not find out this information. Let's see, let's start out with the basics. She was attending this university. It was a 3-story building. She was in room 125, and most people weren't there. So that's the basic information that you have. You don't find a whole lot of information. We do know that they collected DNA samples. We do know that they have fingerprints. We do know that much. But we don't find out on this case until 20 years later. So in 2005, there's some newspaper articles on this case when the sister comes to the police and says, hey, I have some information that I've held for 20 years. And I thought you should know this. Okay. She tells the investigators at this point in time that she actually received a phone call from a man on the day of her sister's funeral that said, I'm sorry, I killed the wrong Sharon Jones. Now, for some reason, this woman does not tell authorities this for 20 years. Then you see in the newspaper articles online that she's bemoaning her situation because the police were hateful to her, wondering why in the world she held this information. Now, I'm normally on the side of the victims' family members here. I'm usually saying, well, you've got to handle victims' family members with kid gloves because they've suffered so much trauma. But in this case, I kind of understand with law enforcement, considering the fact that there was another Sharon Jones registered and as a student in this school at this time. And they knew this because Sharon Beatrice, we're going to call her SB, Sharon Beatrice, she actually had told her sister that she met another Sharon Jones. Okay, so this was viable information that the police really needed 20 years earlier. So we don't understand why why the sister kept this information. Now, understanding this, that, this trauma responses are different, and not necessarily producing any judgment here. But this is something that if they had this information 20 years earlier, then the case would have went into an entirely different direction. So right now we find it disturbing, though, that I find it disturbing that even though they were on the wrong track, there wasn't a lot of media blitz around this case at the beginning. And I think I've found out why. Because it seems like at this university, there's a pattern of behavior that's been established that they don't want to bring anything that is going to make their school look bad. So anything that they can kind of hush up as best as possible, they're going to. Now, we're talking about a university that is predominantly African-American students. We're talking about a university that is impoverished. We're talking about a university that doesn't get the funding that it needs. Okay, so you can kind of understand they're not wanting to make anything look bad because they don't have enough as it is. They don't have the funding they need to operate properly. So you can understand to a point. But then beyond that, you have to really start to think, okay, we need to address the situations that is most important, like the criminal cases that you are not reporting. Now, in 2013, I found that the chancellor and the police chief were both forced to resign amid controversy because between 2007 and 2013, there was 125 criminal cases that they did not report because of sexual assaults, robberies, all different things, because they were trying to not make their school look bad. Okay. They failed to report sexual assaults. There was reports of witness intimidation, and there was reports of obstruction of justice. So the university police chief of the university and the chancellor both were forced to resign in 2013. So this just kind of establishes a pattern of behavior. Also, 2 years, you think, okay, well, maybe this is a one-off. How can you relate something from 1984 all the way to 2013? I'm going to establish a pattern of behavior here. 2 years after this woman was murdered, and the case goes cold and everyone stops talking about it, another student is arrested as a murderer. He murdered another college student from another college. He met this Florida college student and he murdered her. So they went ahead and checked his fingerprints to see if his fingerprints matched Sharon Jones's case, and they don't. So, but this is just to establish a pattern of behavior. There was another murder of a student that went to this school. We're not told that it was murdered. She was murdered on campus or anything, but she was a student there. She was found in the trunk of some man in 2019. So we're talking. This is a rough neighborhood. This is a rough place to go to school. And so this is a pattern of behavior. And what I find disturbing, what makes me think that this pattern of trying to keep all of this out of the media has happened in 1984 is because this was right at spring break. So we were getting close to the end of the year. Now, the school put out a yearbook every year, okay? And a few months later, when this yearbook comes out, there is no mention of Sharon Jones. There's no little memorial page, nothing. And I know when you're producing something like that, you have them printed up already. So if they were already printed in advance, all it would have taken is for somebody on the production staff of the yearbook to say, okay, let's go ahead and create a loose leaf page and put it in the yearbook. So it's not connected to the yearbook, but you could still have a memorial page that you add and you put into the book as you hand them out. So they could have still created a memorial for this poor woman who was murdered in her room, and they chose not to. For whatever reason, they chose not to. So I have a feeling that this has been a pattern of behavior since 1984. They don't like what's happening in their area, but they feel like if they make too big of a stink about it, that their school's not going to get the funding it needs, and they're already not getting enough. So girls, I'm going to stop talking and drink some coffee. Cricket, what do you think about this case?
Well, some things that I question now. When she came back to campus, she brought attention to a light in one of the other dorm rooms, and they were going to her and the other woman in there, they were going to be moved the following day.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm thinking somebody, I mean, if they're knocking on doors and asking, does so-and-so live here? Then somebody knew that they were moving and had only that night to act.
I think, Tammy, you brought up the same point when we were talking earlier.
I thought about that too, yeah.
I don't think so. Because I feel like if they had known that they were moving, if they had known which room she was in, if they had better intel, whoever this killer was, if they had had better information, they would have killed the right Sharon.
True.
I mean, that sounds morbid, but
yeah,
you know what I mean? They wouldn't have killed the wrong target if this was, a makeshift wannabe hitman. He wouldn't have killed the wrong target.
Yeah, and he also
had more information.
Yeah, and also the fact that he called the sister. I mean, I don't know of any killers who have done that. I'm sorry.
It seems like it was more of a rage killing. I'm wondering if it's more of a rage killing because maybe was the other Sharon Jones one of those cases of maybe sexual assault that she tried to report and they didn't do anything with her report, but this guy found out about it, and maybe he'd only seen her once in the dark in the a drunken fueled whatever, and so he couldn't necessarily pick her out of a crowd,
right?
But he just knew her name. To me, we're missing some major piece of this puzzle, and I feel like you're looking for a male, you're looking for a smaller male. The reason why I say that is because she put up one heck of a fight. And someone, they asked, why is she face down by the bed with this around the bedpost? Well, the reason why this would happen, in my mind, of all of these cases I've studied over time, he was sitting on her back. He had fought her. She had fought him back, and she was winning. Okay, she had a weapon, and she was beating him bloody with it. He finally got her on her face. He was sitting on her back. He still didn't have enough to strangle her, so he had to have some leverage around the bedpost. Okay,
yeah,
I mean, that makes logical sense to me. So that tells me he wasn't a big man because, she wasn't necessarily a very large woman anyways. So he had a struggle. So this tells me it's a stranger thing, because he couldn't pick out the right Sharon, and he had to ask door to door who was what your name was. And then he wasn't very big, or he would have been able to take her down without that much of a fight. Okay. So to me, it seems like their case was polar opposite. They were going in the wrong direction from the very beginning. And we've mentioned this, asking the names, but we didn't explain this at the beginning. They immediately started trying to target other women as suspects that were in the building, and they created one suspect that they thought was bigger than the other. And they actually came forward. This woman, she came forward later and said that about 11:30, her and her boyfriend, who wasn't supposed to be there, so this is the reason why she didn't want to give this information at the beginning. Her and her boyfriend got woke up or disturbed at 11:30. There was a man that knocked on their door and asked them for their name, and they wouldn't open the door. Now, to me, was this a smaller man that was posing as campus security, and he was like, I need your name, I need to make sure you're supposed to be here, kind of thing. And she didn't open the door because she had her boyfriend there, which was against the rules, and he wasn't supposed to be there, and he spent the night. So I'm wondering if that was the ruse that Sharon actually fell for and opened the door. Because that would make sense, because she was already nervous because there was a light on that wasn't supposed to be there. She had the security, the little bit of security that they did have, walk her to her room because she got there at like 9:30 at night. So she was a little bit nervous about being there in such an open environment with nobody around. And so to me, it had to be something disarming about this person for her to open the door in the first place, if she was already nervous. So whoever it wasn't intimidating to her. I don't think that he knew her, though. See, they automatically jumped to the conclusion that it was somebody she knew, or she wouldn't have opened the door. And that's not necessarily the case. If it was somebody posing as campus security, then she may have opened the door a crack to respond, my name is Sharon Jones, and then he pushed his way in. So that is a logical way that could have happened. Cricket, you have any more comments?
No, I agree with you, but I'm just like, it's just so baffling that for him to be knocking on doors, so he didn't know which room, so many things he didn't know,
right,
as a hitman or whatever he was, right, did stupid things.
Yeah.
But because of the way it was thought to be going in this direction, that totally threw everything off, because this could have been solved very early on, I believe.
I believe it can be solved to this day.
Yes.
And I think I talked to Tammy about it. I think this case, they've already got a bloody dumbbell. If that DNA was preserved properly, I believe all they need to do is take it, and if they have a good enough specimen, they need to get it to the genealogy department, because they caught the Golden State Killer
Yes.
by tracing his bloodline, through the genealogy websites.
Mhm.
And the problem is that is newer technology, and up until, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I haven't researched it in the last couple of years, but up until a couple of years ago, there was only one place that actually did that. And so everybody's bombarding them and everything's backlogged. But I'm thinking that would be one good way to solve this. Also, if we could go back through the school records and find out who this other Sharon Jones is, and eliminate all of the people around her life at that time.
Yes.
And there we go. But to me, it seems like it's unfortunate that this information was not given to the police 20 years earlier. I believe, I'd like to know how old the sister was, because if she was 8 or 9, what did the guy do? Did he threaten her? If she told, I don't understand why she kept it for 20 years. But I do believe that the case is still solvable. But
Yeah.
I think the only way it's going to be solved is either through the genetics of that DNA sample or getting a massive media blitz. Because see, this case, this is what disturbed me so bad. There was never a massive media blitz about this case.
No, and
You
there
got
wasn't that
a
many people.
21-year-old woman cut down in the very prime of her life. I mean, she was going to graduate this in a few months, and she was going on to be a teacher. She was cut down in the prime of her life, and nobody cares enough to put it in the newspaper.
Yeah,
To me, this just, it's asinine. There's no better word for it.
Right. And there wasn't many people on campus. Somebody knows something.
Exactly. Well, and then I think afterwards they made a big thing there. Well, we're gonna start arresting anybody that's on campus that doesn't supposed to be here right on the spot. We're gonna put in security cameras. I was like, well, it's a little too late for that, don't you think? Somebody was on that campus that wasn't supposed to be there, and there wasn't very many people on the campus at the time, so it shouldn't be too hard to figure out who was on the campus,
Exactly.
eliminate them all as suspects, and then figure out who this stranger was.
I had another thought too. If
Yeah.
they could come up with any kind of a suspect, would that sister be able to recognize the voice that she heard on the phone? And would that voice match the voice of the person that was knocking on the door asking the names too?
Yeah. Well, and see, the next thing is the campus was almost empty, but people were starting to kind of scraggle back in. So I know that guy didn't just knock on one door before he got to her door. Surely he knocked on more than one person's door before. I mean, because I know there was more than 3 people in that whole building.
Now, I wonder if that was the only woman's dorm on campus.
I don't know. I know that was the woman's dorm, but I don't know if there was more than one building or not.
Yeah.
But my thought on it is surely he knocked on more than one door.
Oh, definitely.
And there was more than one person say, not let him in or tell them their name, or, you know what I mean? I'm sure he talked to more than one person. But then on the other hand, I know these didn't talk to very many because there wasn't very many people there. Right. But to me, what can we do now? We are so far behind on this case. What can we do now? What we can do now is raise a media blitz about it. And we need to do that because this woman and her family have been victimized by not only this perpetrator, but the system. In reality, this woman her name should have been plastered all over the news, everywhere, until somebody come forward with information. And it wasn't done. For whatever reason, it wasn't done. And by not giving her the media attention that she needs, it's hindered the investigation. Because, I was talking to one of you girls earlier. I forget which one I'm talking to half the time because I talk to both of you. It seems to me like the other Sharon may not even know that she could have been the target, because if there was not a major media blitz at the beginning, and the only thing that's been said in the local newspaper is that they believe it was this other woman, then this student graduates school and moves out of town, moves out of state or whatever. There's never a national media coverage of this. She could be living her entire life not knowing that she was the target.
Yes, and not only that, when that information did come out about the phone call, that put the other Sharon Jones' life in danger, and I would think that the police should have tried to find her more then,
right,
knowing, okay, if this person's saying they got the wrong Sharon Jones, then we better try to find her because her life could be in danger because this person already knows he got the wrong one.
Right.
And she could have been a good person for the police to talk to find out who it is.
Right. Well, I know that there was a big push on this case in 2005. That's when the sister came forward and said, Hey, I have some information that I think you need to know. And then there was another big push in 2013 when a cold case investigator was assigned to like 30 cases, and Sharon's was included in that. What was happening in 2013? 2013 was when ECSU was actually being investigated because they weren't reporting their crimes like they were supposed to. So that's when the chancellor and the campus police chief was resigned, forcefully resigned, amid controversy. So I believe that's also a reason why there was the cold case investigator. But since 2013, there hasn't been a whisper of anything on this case. So whatever the cold case investigator found or didn't find, we don't know. There's nothing, there's no updates on anything. And to me, that's what I find disturbing.
Yeah.
This is a place that has a pattern of behavior of being a dangerous place with lots of criminal activity, with the activity not being reported like it's supposed to. And this poor woman was absolutely slaughtered in the prime of her life, and nobody's talking about it. And to me, that is not acceptable. And so the only thing we can do as armchair sleuths is talk about it and share it until somebody does something. What do you guys think?
I believe somebody knows something other than the killer. I mean,
I believe somebody knows something. To me, if he was remorseful enough to call the sister, he has told somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's told somebody, there is a bartender somewhere that he was drinking over a bar and he spilled the beans. There is, there is somebody close to him that he has talked to and told this to. So I believe if we had a big media blitz, I believe there would be people coming forward to tell what they know, because we're 30 years on, so people aren't as afraid to come forward now. So to me, now is the time to really push a media blitz and get more people on there. I think we need to get, and then, just to rub it, salt into the wound a little bit more, and just kind of in closing, Sharon Beatrice Jones, Sharon Jones is still not listed on the cold case website for North Carolina State Bureau of Investigations. She's still not on there.
That's horrible.
And from 1984, they've got a handful of cold cases that's listed on their site, and she is still not on their site. And so to me, she's still being overlooked. And that's what's so, if this was my child, how would I feel if my child is slaughtered and then overlooked for 30 years? How would, you as an audience, do you have a child this age? Do you have a child close to this age? How would you feel if this was your child and they were ignored? Because that's basically what it is. I mean, you say, well, the police could come back and say, well, Sonova, you don't know what you're talking about. We're doing the best we can. No, you're not. You're not. If you can't even put her on your website, you're not doing the best you can. I'm sorry. And I'm pro law enforcement. I'm not anti law enforcement. I think, I am very grateful to the men and women in blue who actually do their job and actually try to protect those in their community. But in this case, they're not doing the best they can. If they can't even put her picture on a website, they're not doing the best they can. And that's kind of rough, because I've got a lot of law enforcement friends. But they would tell you, well, they could at least put them on the site. They would agree with me, because the least you can do is put her picture on your website. And so by the end of this, I would like to kick up enough stink that she's at least listed on their site.
Yeah, I had trouble finding anything on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you Google her name, it only comes up one time.
Right. Well, and everything you find will be cycled through Mr. Greg, who has built a Facebook page, who murdered Sharon Beatrice Jones, I think is what it's called. And I'll put a link in the show
That
notes.
was the only video I was able to find.
I found a couple podcasts that he's gotten her information on. But so kudos to Mr. Greg. Like I said, I don't know if he wants his last name publicized, but kudos to Mr. Greg for keeping the torch lit on this one, because in reality, everything I've found has been cycled through that one Facebook page that he has put together himself. So, kudos to him. and his tenacity, because if it wasn't for that Facebook page that he created and people have started putting the little bits here and there in there, I wouldn't have found anything other than the article. There's an online article that said the sister came forward with the phone call, and then there's two little partial articles. They're actually ads in newspapers.com that mention her name, but it's basically a list of things. There is the school that's putting up a $5,000 reward for information on the following cases. So there's like a list of cases, and she's listed in there. That's the only two things that she's mentioned in newspapers.com. So I'm sitting here going, she has no online footprint whatsoever if it wasn't for Mr. Greg. So 2 points for Mr. Greg. So.
And it's sad considering, it looks like she put up such a fight to save her life. It's sad that
it's time for us to put up a fight for her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We really need to.
With the DNA now, I mean, right there, that can solve it.
Right. And I just hope, because everything else, nothing was really handled really well at this stage. I'm just hoping that DNA was collected properly and stored properly
well.
and isn't degraded to the point that they can't use it. Because I really feel like that is our biggest weapon right there, and then if we come up with a suspect, then we can match the fingerprint and all that. But, we could do the genetic tracking through the DNA if it's a decent sample.
And I still think the other Sharon Jones could shed a lot of light.
Oh, yeah. If she even knows. And see, that's what I find disturbing. 30 years, she may not know. How would you like to live 30 years and then find out, oh, hey, you were actually the target for a murder 30 years ago, and nobody said anything about it?
And they could track her down. The police can do
yeah, absolutely.
And I pray nothing happened to her.
Yeah.
Because we don't know. She doesn't know she was a target, and the police didn't try to reach out to her when they did find out.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know that they didn't try to reach out to her. They haven't publicly released anything about them reaching out to her.
Right.
So in my hopeful mind, I try to keep things a positive, hopeful mindset. Hopefully they are working on it behind the scenes. Whoever that 2013 cold case investigator, hopefully they are working on it. But I have to tell you too, you need to understand, when someone says that they've got a new cold case investigator and they're working on it, it's usually one guy. One guy working 30 cases at a time. It's going to take a while. And so that's the problem. A lot of these police departments and different things, they don't have a whole team. You watch TV and they have, cold case justice and all these different types of TV shows. And they have this whole team. They have, all this equipment. They have all of this abilities to send off testing here and testing there. But that's not the way it works in real life. You might have one guy working part-time on 30 cases.
Yeah. We call that CSI effect.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. The CSI effect.
They get it done in a half hour.
And they always get the right guy the first time, and that's just not the way it works. Okay. So we're pushing 30 minutes, and I'm going to try to keep our True Crime Tuesdays down to 30 minutes. So closing thoughts. Cricket, what are your closing thoughts?
Well, I'm just hoping that this does get opened and solved, and, let's hope people share this video and get it out there.
Absolutely. Tammy, what's your final thoughts?
I'm like you. I believe it's solvable. There's enough evidence left in the room, I believe. And if they could track down this other Sharon Jones, I think it's solvable if people would do what they need to do.
I think it's solvable. And I think one key thing to make it solvable is if we could get enough media attention, because this other Sharon may not even know she's a target. There's all kinds of people in and around this case that could have information, but they don't know that they have information until the media says, hey, we're looking for this information. And then that bartender can come out of the shadows and say, hey, I remember this so-and-so told me about this. And, I just thought he was drunk and didn't pay any attention, because nobody ever gets the whole story. And that's another thing about the CSI effect. You get one witness who can tell them exactly everything that happened from beginning to end. And that's not the way it works in real life. You have 10 witnesses who have a piece of a puzzle that doesn't make sense on its own until you get all other 10 witnesses together and their pieces, and you put all 10 pieces together, and all of a sudden you say, oh, there's the tip that I need. And so a lot of people, they just don't know they have information until the media is like, hey, we're looking for this information. So I think everybody that watches this, if you all will help us share this story, if we can somehow get national media attention, if we can get people talking about this, then we can start getting the leads coming in that the police officers need. So, all right, well, that's what I have for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Make sure and like and subscribe and share and all that stuff. It helps us greatly. Make sure and check out Bones Coffee. That helps us make more videos. And please, please share Sharon's story. She needs more media attention, and together we can get that attention for her.